Hello, everybody. Welcome to CripChat, your weekly podcast for everything disability. Today I have with me Jonathan Shar, D, Chris Bennett, David Cunningham, and myself, David D. Today we're going to be talking about getting to know the CripChat crew. Over to you, Ibby.
Thank you, David. Yeah, please like a chair. Welcome, everyone. So today we're talking to our CripChat crew, David Cunningham. David, welcome.
Hello.
Tell us a bit about yourself and what got you passionate about joining CripChat Australia.
Yeah, well, basically, thanks for that, David. Good. It'd be good to actually ask. Well, like made famous about me. I have a Scottish background. I was born in 1978. I'm actually a quarter Polish, quarter Irish, and half Scottish. My parents were both actually teachers, and basically I grew up in Rotorua, New Zealand, before coming to Australia in May 1993. And of course, after that, I then had schooling and then went through my adult life, and now I'm 44 and with you guys. But the reason why I actually joined CripChat was because it was a goal of mine, and it was a passionate goal of mine to actually create a online media platform for us all to actually have in the disability space. So yeah, that's why I joined the company, and of course I was invited to join by Jonathan, and yeah, here I am.
Awesome, it's good to have you on the show, David Cunningham. So you came in 1993. You were probably around 15 at that time. So tell us about your schooling experience. How was your childhood, back in your home country, as opposed to your life here in Australia?
Yeah, well, actually, because most of my schooling actually occurred within Rotorua, New Zealand, and not in Scotland where I was born, because I left there when I was 1. And basically, I've been in both the mainstream and support units of schools, and so yeah. Basically, when I was growing up, I was the first wheelchair student in the actual high school I went to, which is John Paul College in Rotorua at the time, and basically they didn't know properly how to support me growing up there, so I had to basically pave the way forward for that, which is difficult and at times been quite challenging, but we managed to actually get through it. And of course it was an adventure that was going through that, and of course it presented the same challenges with teachers' aides and etc., going through all that tough stuff, and yeah, it was quite a journey there for my schooling years and all that. But I tell you though, I finished up with an HSC of 78% in Tuning Contemporary English, which is pretty good. So I did a slight HSC there, and I passed, which is good. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Did you find it difficult? Did you find it difficult to be one of the first students in a wheelchair, because a lot of things would have been hard to access?
So in the school there, they were still getting ramps and people probably accessible. So I was the guinea pig in a way. I had to try all the different systems out and make sure the place was actually becoming more accessible. And of course, there were issues around, how I got support with my partial visual impairment, because I have cerebral palsy as well as dystonia now in my right leg, and of course I'm partially blind, like you, David. So it's interesting having to have that visual too in your schooling years, because you have issues around big print font and seeing the subject matter that you're learning about in class. So it was quite a time for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been challenging, dealing with schooling and stuff.
Would you say that was a learning experience for you, and then that way you've come into the interest of what you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, like, the thing is, there were times when it was difficult and times when it was much, easier. Fortunately, my mum actually taught at the school that I was actually at. Good having a support there with that, process too, having a parent on site as a teacher there as well. So mum there to support that process too for us. Mixed time and a mixed journey there, but we got through it. And of course, once I left school, I did a lot of different self-education and training workshops doing over the 10 years from my 18th learned a whole bunch of different skills, sets that I needed to have for my life, which made it a lot easier to get around, etc.
That's interesting. So building on that, and thank you for the questions, David. So you got support from your mother. Tell us, how has your other family supported you, and also your local community supported you throughout those years?
My parents and my brother have been my mainstay supports in my life, and of course they've been there all the way. And of course, I mean, the funny thing was that the local community, it's a bit difficult because often people don't know actually how to deal with people with disabilities. I find as well, and the worst thing is people always assume you actually need help when you have a disability. Often it's difficult to say to people, look, no, I'm right with this. I can do it myself. I'm perfectly good. Thanks. I mean, I face that a few times often here and there, but of course, as people would see the fact that I'm more able to cope now, I basically only get help with things I actually really need to be done to me, like my personal care, etc. But those things, but not with communication and accessing my support, which is good. And of course, my care package helps as well. I get a lot of support from the community through that way as well. So it does make my life a bit more empowered, a bit more out there, which has been useful.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear, David Cunningham. I guess, look, having a disability ourselves, it allows us to become more independent and choose what works for us and how we can improve, being involved in the community and whatnot. So that's awesome, David Cunningham. Awesome, good stuff, good stuff.
Thank you.
What has been your experience of, tertiary education and also having employment? You've been out there in the community. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, basically, right, when it comes to my tertiary education and also within open employment, I've had at least around 25 years worth of voluntary work behind me, which has been good. I actually get out there and contribute to my community regularly. And of course, like being an advocate, you're always busy, as we all are. I mean, I've got a client now I'm working on too, so I'm always actively involved in that. And that's, I tell you, when I did apply to go to university once, I got asked to actually prove that I actually had cerebral palsy, which is most interesting. And they thought I was faking my disability. So I said to them, well, okay, if you want that, how about you pay me to go and see my doctor to get you the proof that you're asking for, which was quite interesting. So of course, that put me off actually going to university. If you're facing those types of questions, even just to be required to prove your disability when you're sitting there in front of them, it's a bit of a challenge. And of course, with open employment, I was once employed by a former provider of mine for 1 year as the personal assistant to the manager of a local office of my provider, and then as an actual office assistant for a year. So I have had employment experience as well with that, which has been good for me to have that. It's been useful to the experience of my life too of contributing there.
In terms of getting yourself out there with employment, did somebody support you or help you along the way, or did you do it all on your own?
At the time, I was a client of the independent attendant care program in New South Wales, and of course at that time I had a care package, which is a state package I had then as well, and basically I became the first client of that program from the state government to actually put myself out to tender to have providers compete for my package and my support. And so I actually created a whole system of my own to actually recruit my provider. So this particular provider who won that process was so impressed with how I did all that and what I went about and the process I went about to do that they actually gave me a job out of it. So I became the PA to their office manager after that, and that was at my 29th birthday. I did all that, so it was quite interesting.
So yeah, young and I guess full of potential. That's awesome.
Full of potential, exactly.
It is, Cunningham. Having a disability, we come across discrimination, almost every day, and it's so good. But for you, tell us when you had to resolve an instance of disability discrimination.
Well, actually, it's rather interesting because where I live in Blacktown in Western Sydney, in Australia, in New South Wales, my local council, which is Blacktown Council at the time, I think I was only like 17, 18 at the time. But my local council didn't have a ramp or a sign for the ramp at the front of the council chambers. And where the ramp actually was down the road a bit from the front steps. And so they had steps at the front, but the ramp was hidden along the way, so you couldn't actually see where the ramp was. So I actually took Black Town Council to the Human Rights Commission. I actually lodged a complaint against them, and I actually won a sign we put up there outside the chambers where the actual ramp was, saying "This way to ramp." Where I live now, there's a sign at the front of council that says this, and there's an arrow that says "This way to ramp." And I tell you, that was something I achieved myself when I was at my late teenage years. And so basically, I actually firmly believe in the idea of we should always take action to resolve any form of a discrimination that we face. Otherwise, it just remains there. It remains a systemic issue for us all the time in our lives, and we can't have that.
If you need something done, you've got to make a noise.
Have to make a noise, exactly right.
Exactly. So you've done a lot of advocating for yourself, David Cunningham.
Oh, look, it actually is crucial. Absolutely, it's crucial. I think that, in my time, I think I've learned that when you have a disability, I almost think that people who don't have disabilities actually assume that we can't, or that we're actually less than, and so we're always feeling like we start off from the back foot, or like being behind a bit. For me, I've always felt like I had to prove myself all the time until I turned 40. And then I realized that I don't have to prove myself anymore. I've actually done a lot in my life to accomplish myself. And now I can say to the world, no, I don't have to prove anything to anyone, because now I've become a skilled person who actually has talents and abilities and can contribute to the world that he lives in. And it's really important we do that. It's important we recognize our own worth and our own value, because we have it. It's like inherently built in us, and we have to just find it.
Well said, Cunningham. I think, we don't need to prove ourselves, and we tend to do that, time to time, especially as young adults with disabilities. But over time, showing your knowledge and insights, we learn to, accept ourselves. It makes us stronger. It makes us who we are.
Exactly.
So, just give it. You're doing a great job, Cunningham. How awesome. How has your, background of, being a person with disability supported your experience of, disability and working in that space?
Well, I tell you, that's also a great question, Ibby, to ask me. Basically, my own life, being Scottish primarily has taught me several things. My background and my family has taught me how to actually fight, like through intellectual strength to win. And see, for me, winning is really important. It's important to me that I get somewhere, that I actually accomplish something, that my goals I have in my life, I actually reach them. And it's important even for my work with you guys, that we actually get to where we're actually wanting to actually be, and so basically the idea of having that strength and that, internal want to overcome adversity, that's important, because basically, the Scottish people have fought, numerous years throughout the centuries of time to actually, battle the odds all the time, and basically, it's funny because within history, the past years that have gone, often we see that it's the English that actually send the Scottish out to do their fighting for them. It's because we're good at that, and so that's one thing I've learned from my own culture, is that being an advocate, being a strong voice for myself and for my community actually matters, and it matters that we actually can pursue things, and matters that we can actually achieve some tangible outcomes and action on the ground, because that's what actually matters in the end. It's how much we actually accomplish to reach our potential what we're actually after.
Yeah, that's interesting because, we all come from, cultural backgrounds, and, for us being in a diverse community, often our own cultural identities perceive, people with disability as being something else, being unusual, being unique, being, I guess, special.
Yeah.
Do you believe being silent is admitting defeat?
Well, I tell you, David, I think it depends on what context, because to be honest to you, sometimes silence is actually appropriate. So,
for example, if you see a problem, if you stay silent, you're just admitting that that you don't need anything.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to silence, I think occasionally silence can be a sign of quiet approval of something, or silence can mean have done something wrong ourselves too. So I think silence it depends upon the situation and the context, and we need to make sure we're aware of that. I mean, to make sure we actually
if there's a problem and you stay silent, that means you're allowing them to know that you don't need change.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But look, like David Cunningham said, it depends on the situation at hand. It depends on the context. Yeah, where would you,
exactly.
be silent or not.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, we do have this platform, CripChat Australia, where we won't remain silent. We'll continue to make noise. So, turning to, CripChat now, what's your vision for the podcast and how would you like to see it contribute to our narrative or our national disability narrative?
Well, yeah, like when it comes to CripChat, I believe that Australia needs to have an actual online disability media platform so that we can actually pursue stories that actually matter to us and confront issues and make actual public policy change. Because basically, right, I agree with our goal and our objective of actually having that equity and that inclusive society. But how we get there is really, really important. It's not just the getting there, it's the journey we take to get there, how we influence and persuade people to join our cause in a way. And see, to me, I think CripChat's a great voice. We're a great megaphone for our disability community. And I think it's important that we use that and realize its power, because we do have, I think the podcast we have great potential within us to actually be that megaphone for our community. When it comes to how we can contribute to our national disability narrative, I actually want to see us become a kind of empowered community where we actually embrace our diversity and embrace our strengths and see ourselves for who we are, and in fact that we can be more than just victims or more than just people who are defined by a disability. We're all got skills and talents and gifts. And to me, the joy of being on this podcast with the team that with the have, I think, is that we all put pitch in our own effort into it to make it something spectacular and to become something more than ourselves.
So you're trying to tell me that this podcast can inspire one to do more than they.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I know.
We definitely can.
Inspire others. A lot of people think when they say others doing things that have more disability than they do, then they say, if that person can do it, I can do it.
That's right. And so the thing is that I want to look at for us as well, though, is that, Australia rarely ever sees an actual disability reporter or a disability journalist. I think that's important. I think it's important we actually have media personalities out in Australia who actually have a disability and that we actually are proud of them and that we actually say, this person is a reporter for this platform and they cover stories on disability every week. That's a goal. That's an exciting goal we can actually have.
That's a great point.
Yeah, look, CripChat Australia, it does provide a platform to allow, people's voices to be heard. It's very important that we stick to that. So, like David Daoud said, moved in outside their comfort zone. People are, shy and are held back. But I guess allowing us to, raise our voice can change the narrative of the way we do things. So,
exactly.
Cunningham, just put you on spot here. Where do you see CripChat Australia in 5 years' time?
Well, my vision where I want to see our podcast is that I'd like to see us with sponsorship within 5 years. And I'd like to see us have the ability to actually pay people to work full time, on the podcast or for the podcast, so that we can actually have reporters doing stories and actually producing content that we can actually put on our podcast every week. And actually, big idea for me is that I'm a reporter who actually has a disability in every territory of the country. That'd be exciting. produce stories and contribute to the podcast weekly so that we can actually have that diversity across the country, can actually have the ability to really cover the country and then look towards bigger objectives after that. I mean, to me, with CripChat, the sky's the limit. That's what I believe. I think we need to have some vision and some passion to actually get there, because we can.
It's all about the passion. Yeah. How important is it that we have the passion and the drive to make this grow, hopefully around, Australia,
Exactly.
hopefully around.
Exactly.
So we just got a comment here from Lisa. She said that I can't start as a diploma as I'm a postgrad, but I had a stroke and have lost all my study skills. Yeah, look, never give up. Never give up. Always fight for, I guess you're right. There's always accessibility options as well. So thank you for sharing that comment. But yeah, never give up. I'm also another
never give up.
same comment by the NDIS puts in the try the NDIS, put in a submission. Thank you for that, Lisa. Yep. I guess the NDIS is there to help us and assist us. So that's awesome. Thank you very much for your comments. Any further questions, Jonathan, David?
It's great talking to you tonight, there, Ibby, and I tell you, I look forward to many a great episode on the podcast, and I'm proud to be the producer of CripChat. I think it's actually we're doing really great work, and I think it's important to have these chats for yourself and to know the crew and to know who's behind what we do. It's very important.
Awesome. Anyway, look, thank you very much, Cunningham, for being involved in CripChat Australia and allowing us to know more about your personal life, as well as giving us an insight into what it is living as a person with disability. You have all been watching CripChat, your weekly podcast on everything disability. Join us next week as we talk about all things disability. Well, I think Jonathan will be in the spotlight, I believe. Goodbye for now.
Thanks, guys.